Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdicus Dave, and today I'm joined by Connor from Gemhammer Games. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. It's good to have you on. You're like one of the very early first sponsors we've ever had
Were
as
we really?
Nerdarchy.
I see.
Like,
I didn't actually know that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
knew we. That was a long time ago,
It
but
was a long time ago. It was very early. Like we might have had a couple. Like we've been hanging out with the guys from Easy Roller Dice for a long time.
Mhm.
And they jumped in like super early, but you guys were pretty early too. So it's cool to get you on and hang out, and we can reminisce about the old days, and also what's
Pardon me.
coming
I
up and
didn't shut my
what's
phone off.
new.
That was foolish. So I literally just launched our next Kickstarter. Like I pressed the button while you were talking, which is why I'm like half paying attention to what you're saying.
Oh, nice, nice.
um,
No worries.
but yeah, we've been plugging away. We launched our a Kickstarter right at the end of 2019, and we got a new book out, our first book out for 2020 somehow, some way, and that was the grimoire, the Jim
Oh,
Hammer grimoire,
nice. Yeah, you have it
and
like right in front of your face.
right,
It-
just right there,
yeah, there you
and
go.
it's
That's where
perfect.
your window is. That's the
Um,
target.
so that was our like big book of spells and stuff. Um, and sorry, I've like lost myself here.
Yeah.
Too many windows. So that was
I
like our
know
big
the
book of
feeling.
spells. And so now we're kind of do our next book, Rolex Guide to Violence, is a big book of uh, martial combat stuff. So the first book was your sorcery, and now it's your big book of swords.
So
Complete the collection.
before we dive into that a little bit, let's back up a little bit,
Absolutely.
kind of introduce yourself and what you do for people that might be unfamiliar.
Sure. So my name's Connor. I'm one of the co-founders for Gem Hammer and Sons. We are a 5e D20 third-party tabletop publisher. You may have seen our Kickstarters now and again. We made a deck of many things a while ago. We have the deck of Wonder on Drive Through RPG, and that was kind of like how we got started. Um, you may have seen us kicking around PAX or at Gen Con or one of those now and again. We're pretty small. There's only three of us that are kind of doing this full time. This isn't anybody's fault. This isn't anyone's like regular job. I keep saying it's nobody's full time job. It is absolutely my full time job.
Yeah.
But I also had a full time job well, before COVID that I was also doing while doing this. But so like no one gets paid for Gemhammer. But it's a kind of like our passion, and we're trying to build it into a solid company that makes more better game stuff. So what we do is we just support 5e. We originally were doing 5e and Pathfinder, but it started off with us making kind of accessories for it to try and improve the game, get people out of like tables and books and back at the table. Like we had a deck of cards that was all about wild shapes and stuff like that, so that your druids and rangers didn't have to carry around a monster manual as a character sheet, things like that. We had a deck of many things, which you guys covered. And after we did a bunch of those, we kind of decided, we wanted to start developing our own content, and we've gone from there. And we kind of have a roadmap for the future of uh, content we want to make, and long-term plans on our own game and things like that. Kind of jumping into the future. So
What
that's
do you
what.
prefer, making like your own content or doing the accessories type stuff?
Um, I think I enjoy the our own content. Well, see, it's weird because our own content and the accessories kind of live in the same space
Yeah.
because like we never, well, with the exception of the deck of cards that were animals. Well, and even then we made some of our own animals, but with the exception of that, we were never like just taking stuff right out of the book and putting them on cards and selling them. Like when we did the deck of many things, those were the deck of many things out of the SRD, but we also made three of our own decks with our own invented mechanics. No, pardon me. Um, and we made sure to balance them against what the 3.5 and 5e like good, bad, and ugly uh, spread was on those cards. Variance. That's the word I wanted to use but didn't. So when we did the deck of wonder, it was kind of the same thing. We kind of looked at what did the Rod of Wonder do in 3.5? What does the Rod of Wonder do in 5e? What did it do in the past? And we kind of broke down the percentages, and then we built the deck of wonder from there. Going, all right, we need X number of good, X number of bad, X number of whatever. So we were still kind of making our own content then. But now we can have a lot more fun with it. We've kind of been like we've been using this in-game world that we have not really written for as a framing narrative for the content that we're developing. But we like that as because it's kind of like, signposting to a future project where we'll probably do a campaign setting or something along those lines and start producing adventures. Um, and that lets us be a little more creative in a way that the cards can't let us be, because the cards, like, they might say something fun and goofy, but like we can have fun and funny plot lines that people may or may not enjoy. We will still make stuff that is as generic as possible, because that's kind of how we got started, and people like that because they like to, like, I feel like a lot of people will buy adventures not to use the adventures but to try and plug it into their own worlds. So
Yeah.
we're still going to do stuff like that, but we also, like, we're having fun developing humorous characters, because you can do more with that than just a goofy one liner that gets thrown onto a card. And it's fun and funny in the moment, but you can do more with, like, an NPC with a backstory and a series of events, and uh, a book with a lot of running jokes and things like that than you can with just a deck of cards. So
Yeah.
I think I like the books that we're doing a lot more than the cards, but we'll still do both.
It lets you get a little bit deeper into like what you're doing and explore it and develop it more. But on the plus side, eventually when you get enough of the other stuff, you can then turn that into accessories and cards and stuff as well.
Well, that's true. I mean, we actually kind of did that with the grimoire, where we also had spell cards. That were now
Mhm.
we have a reference deck for the thing that we made ourselves. So yeah, it's once we get rolling, I imagine that it'll be a lot of the same. Where it's now we have our own system and our own stuff, and we can start to develop that same content for that. Assuming people like and want that.
So, with having, sometimes having regular jobs as well as running a company, you also mentioned going to school. You actually have time to game.
I do. Well, prior to COVID, I had a group that met once a month or so here at my house, and I was the DM. But primarily, every Monday night, I have gotten together with the same group of guys for the last, like, I don't know, like 10 years.
Yeah.
The Dudes, Guys, and Dragons is what we call it, and with more or less without fail, we've gotten together every Monday night, and I don't know how we make that work, because everyone's always like complaining, like, we can never get our groups together, we can never find a time, and it's like every Monday night,
It's
no matter what's going on,
it's
we got it.
it's just a matter of like what are people's priorities, right? And if gaming's a priority for you, you'll do it. If it's not, you won't. And like for a long time, like we had the same group, and we would meet every Saturday. Um, and then like slowly but surely, like that got harder and harder. So like that's evolved to like we still game almost every Saturday, and it's me and Ted. But then like we have like three different groups that all just meet once a month. So like we game regularly, but most of the people we game with do not game as much. And it's easier because some people are just busy and that's what they have time for. It just makes
That's
it
what they
really
get.
hard and slow to progress storylines.
Well, yeah. I mean, for me, I think it's important that I always get back with my home group and play, because I feel like there's a lot of stress and a lot of responsibility involved in something like this.
Yeah.
Because like I write a lot of the content, and the Kickstarter video, like, I made that entirely by myself. So I wrote, acted, produced a 2-minute animation in approximately a month. Um, I wrote half the grimoire, maybe a little more than half the grimoire, and then did all the layout, most of the art, um, and then made the interactive PDFs and everything, and then, like, managed the fulfillment for the Kickstarter. So, like, any one project we do is a massive amount of work for me, and it's a lot of stress. It's like I feel like if I wasn't in that game every Monday night, I would lose my passion for this, because there's just so much going on and it becomes a job. And you I don't care who you are. Most people tend to hate their job. They always want a break. And if it weren't for that break, where I get to kind of remember why I'm doing this and remember why I love this, because far too often Gemhammer takes me out of the parts that I love to insert me into a bunch of legal jargon I don't care about, or like fulfillment problems that I don't really care about, or whatever that I have to deal with. So I'm very thankful that I have those group of guys to get together with every Monday. to kind of keep my interest in this going long enough to keep producing this stuff.
Now
And then I don't know what I'll do if they ever stop.
I've got the video muted right now.
Yeah.
But just looking at the video, this is really fucking good.
Thank you.
Like you did a really good job. Like I'm super impressed.
I produced that last month.
Yeah.
More or less. Like it was like half produced when we saw each other at Gen Con. And I was working on a little bit at night during Gen Con, and then I finished it the week after. And my wife was like, "Are you gonna sleep?" And I'm like, "Nope, nope, not gonna do that."
So how many hours did 2 minutes of it take you?
Ooh. See, I'm also using this as part of my grad school final project because I'm also producing 4 other videos for Gemhammer, but for a future project, also as part of that same final project for school. And they asked me that question. I'm like, I should have kept track of that. So I'm estimating 80 times 4, roughly 80 hours of work times 4 weeks. Not all at once because there was a week where I took off from it. So somewhere in the neighborhood of that. Like, it's a lot of work because, I mean, some of it's not shaded, so, like, and some of it like I took from other things, which helped like speed things along. But like sometimes I'd hit a roadblock in the original idea of the video and then had to come up with something new to replace it. At one point, the video was like partly done, and then I was like, this drags on too long. And I still think it drags on too long, but we got to, so I had to like cut it down, which means I had to redo things. So it's a lot of work. Anyone that's like, oh yeah, just like jump into animation. No, like it's not easy. It's a lot of work. And especially like with just the simple things like lip syncing. I don't use a auto lip syncer. I know there's a few parts in that video that are wrong, like the lip syncing isn't quite right, but I would prefer to do it myself and be wrong in a few places than to let the auto lip syncer do it and try and like guess or like transition awkwardly between 2 different phonemes. And it's like, let's in a loop. And it's like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So I also create more time because I'm a perfectionist, but then don't make it perfect. So figure it out. I don't know.
It's a trap. Nah, it looks good, man. That's pretty cool. I don't know. You might have a future in D&D animated videos.
Who knows where this is going to take me? Maybe I'll start doing animated videos. I'll produce one a month, 80 hours a week.
I mean, I don't know if you've seen like Puffin Farce and Dingo Doodles, and
I love Puffin Farce. He's got some great videos.
And Z. But Z cheats. He's such a cheater.
He's got to be using character animator. He almost has to be.
I don't know what he uses. I just say he cheats because he's a professional.
Oh, well,
like he did the Red Bull commercial.
Did he?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like I think everyone else.
I'm almost positive he's using character animator. I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong, but it looks like he's built up a library of characters, and he's like all their parts, like their mouths, their eyes, everything are symbols. And in character animator, you can set it up so that like the camera now with me talking, you can set it up so it matches my mouth and my face and all that stuff. So now I don't know for sure, but I would not be surprised if that's what he's doing, especially since he produces them so quickly. But also, again, he must have a huge library of characters.
I don't know, like, because like I've seen videos of his where like I'm like an 8-minute video. Like I don't always watch his videos, but when I'm like 8 minutes, what the hell is he doing with 8 minutes? And then like halfway through it cuts out and it just goes to him. I'm like, oh, that's why it's 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking, because I've talked to a bunch of those folks and it just takes a long time to animate stuff. So
yeah, it's a lot. I never really set out to be an animator, so
yeah,
this is something that I've picked up along the way.
Well, you've put the skill to use, and apparently for at least 3 more Kickstarters as well.
Or 1, who knows? We'll see what this one does.
Yeah.
Have we funded yet? No, damn it.
Last time I saw you were like almost 25%.
Reload the page, see what happens.
Now this is what you're gonna be doing all day, is just watching.
Oh yeah.
So what's in?
If I'm not funded in an hour, I'm gonna be like sitting in the corner going, "It's a failure," and then we'll be funded in 4 hours. So don't worry about it. So what was your
What
question?
what is in that Kickstarter?
So Rolex Guide to Violence. It's kind of like so the Gemhammer Grimoire. This was all of our spells and magic and stuff. So
Hmm.
Rolex Guide to Violence is all of our martial combat stuff. So there's whole new combat systems that we've kind of built up for fifth edition. We kind of sat down before we made this book. We're like, all right, well, we made the grimoire. It kind of started off as for self-promotional reasons. We originally started putting some free content up on Gemhammer to kind of like help promote our cards, and we thought we'd do spell cards later. So we did like free spells for a while. We called it Wizardry Wednesdays, and then we are like, well, what do we do with this? And then we sat down and we started talking about what is what is missing from Magic, and we talked about
Yeah.
feats a lot, and we missed prestige classes and things like that. So we built out the Gemhammer Grimoire Kickstarter around stuff that we wanted to make, stuff that we thought was funny, stuff that were bad jokes that we wanted to see made into magic items anyway, like
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan. Um, don't worry about it. And just like silly stuff that we were doing. And we kind of built it from there. With this, we took a much longer time to say, what is missing from combat? Because uh, combat is not as deep in 5e as it is in, say, third edition, which I think most people will agree. Although probably not as repetitive as maybe second edition Pathfinder nowadays. But we kind of went through the combat. And we're like, okay, there's no like fainting. There's none of that more nuanced styles of combat. There's certainly nothing like fourth edition, but fourth edition was a totally different game. And I know some people hate it, but so we kind of looked at what are some more advanced combat type situations that could exist in 5e but don't. And then we said what's just straight up missing that like does not exist. And so performance combat was one of the things we came up with. There's no performance combat anywhere that we found. And so Joe, my counterpart, has built out a pretty good system for how performance combat will work. And then we also like have 3 different styles of it. And we kind of used narrative to help kind of frame them. And one of them is more like a stage, and then one is more like your wrestling gladiatorial arena. And for the life of me, I now, because I'm on the spot, can't remember what the third one is. So I'm just going to move on.
Doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. So, and then, vehicular combat and styles and ways of using vehicles. And that originally came out of, I was playing with the D&D group, and we had 2 vehicles, and we had 2 horses alongside them. And someone asked the question, if I stop, but everyone else has already used their movement to go forward, and everything's happening in the same 6 seconds, do I get an attack of opportunity? And that one question opened up a whole world of moving objects that is not covered in 5th edition. And that turned into us writing this ridiculous chapter on what vehicle combat could be if you want it in your game. But even beyond these combat systems we've kind of developed, we put together new classes. We haven't done wholesale new classes before. So these are completely new classes. We've got 8 of them. And then we went back and said, all right, of the traditional classes, what are subclasses we can make that kind of fits this? The book is themed around, the framing narrative is there's a god of violence, and he's got this protege, his manservant more or less, who fancies himself a herald, who is writing this book kind of glorifying him. But then the god has now gone back through the book, and it's like, this is all nonsense. And it's all tropes. It's all like Conan the Barbarian tropes and Street Fighter jokes and Road Warrior stuff. Very tongue-in-cheek, because that's what we do. It's very silly. Even from the video, like some people have been like, is this from Street Fighter? And I'm like, yeah. It's like in the video, there's parts that are just like wholesale. Like I went, what is the background on Street Fighter Alpha 2? What is that? Perfect. I'm gonna recreate that in my own. And that's what it is. It's a lot of like Mortal Kombat jokes and stuff like that. So we kind of went through and built some of the classes around those jokes. We even have a magical girl class, although we don't call it that, because like you don't have to be a girl to take it. We didn't want to go down that road.
Class.
Right. So we called it Magical Guardian, but the whole thing is just one massive setup for a joke about the manservant character Jermaine misunderstanding the god's secret vault of anime and manga, and thinking that, oh, these are records of this ancient group of female warriors that he glorifies. he's just a
He's
weeb.
yeah.
That's it. He's just a weeb. um, which is actually funny for me because like there's a running joke that so the guy that so Rollick is actually based on a character from one of our games, and that guy like has on his Twitter, "I'm not a weeb. I'm not into anime." Like,
Yeah.
so that's just an inside joke for me. But beyond that, we went in and new weapon types. There's a lot of like the exotic weapons from previous editions aren't there, and that us kind of looking at that turned into us making new weapons, new classes of weapons, like advanced weapons. um, we made some exotic weapons, but they're different. They're not like, oh, these are just Asian and Japanese and Chinese weapons that we're calling them exotic. Like that's not what we did. We did something different with them. But there's three new classes of weapons that we've designed for this. One of them is primal weapons, and there's advanced weapons, and I forget what the other one is. Ascended weapons, and so you need to take feats to
Mhm.
be able to even use them. And like feats are expensive in 5e, so much so that they don't make sense to ever take because you're losing out on so much, unless the feat is particularly powerful. So we've kind of developed an alternate feat system. And the idea is that like if you adopt this alternate feat system, then you can just use them the way you use feats now in fifth edition, or you can adopt this alternate feat system, which would give you access to whole trees of feats that let you kind of build your character the way you want it. In fact, we also like very similar to a fighter in third edition have a class in here that's you basically just get one of these feats all the time. Um, and the idea is that well, this is unbalanced because like well your characters are now getting all these feats. Okay, so we've also got feats for your monsters and monsters that can make better use of them, so it's to kind of tip those scales however you want. We've also some mild crafting, and we'll see how far deep into that we get as we
Yeah.
do stretch goals and stuff, but weapon properties and weapon materials are also in this. And those weapon materials have their own unique properties, so that like if you could just have a normal short sword made out of this particular material, kind of like silvered or mithril, like in the same way that's already in fifth edition, we kind of just took that concept and ran with it the way that like cold iron was a thing in previous editions. We've just built out all these different materials that have different properties depending on if you make armor or weapons out of them, et cetera, et cetera. So all that's in the book. It's tons of combat martial class related stuff, not too much in the spell department. We are thinking of adding to the stretch goals. We're live and we still haven't made this. We were thinking it's a god. Why aren't there clerics? And it's because they cast spells. We already did clerics.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we'll see what happens if enough people want it. Then we'll stick in there because why not?
Leaving room
Yeah,
for
that's.
volume two.
I mean, we our stretch goals go up to like 50K.
Yeah.
Surprise us, push us past that point, and you'll see what we have for the next 50K. I would love
Just
to make two books.
just do a back Colville and be like, you don't get a stretch goal to 300 grand.
Man, we don't have that kind of wiggle room. I'm not like however far they are from wizards, that's how far I am from them. Like I can't get away with that. We tried to do a Kickstarter last year for 13 grand, and people were like, too rich for my blood.
Yeah, yeah. It's tough, man. It's all about marketing.
It is, and we're
Yeah,
we're small potatoes. Like we're punching up, and we know it, but that's okay.
definitely. It just means you got room to grow. Definitely get there. So, what do you think that like what is the fine line between like making products for 5e and not just trying to recreate third edition?
We're kind of trying to do both, to be perfectly honest. Part of us, there's a lot of things with third edition we didn't like, which is why we were very eager to try fifth edition when it came out. But then there's a lot of things in fifth edition we don't like, and so we've actually kind of taken a lot of things, a lot of inspiration from third edition, and a lot of things we do and don't like in fifth edition, and kind of like try to find a nice middle ground. That's not fourth edition. Just to make sure we're all clear. That's not how that works.
Well,
um,
there isn't really a whole lot in between. Although I mean, they incorporated a lot of 4e stuff in the 5e.
they did
They just
called it
redressed
something
it.
different.
Yeah,
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 used Gothathosaurus to call them slightly different things.
yeah. Short and
But
long rest instead of daily and encounter. It's like,
right. But we're not trying to recreate it. We're
yeah,
we're kind of taking an inspiration and then also like having fun with it. Like let's
yeah,
just keep going with it. Let's keep running with the general concept, like the prestige classes. Like you can't really make prestige classes work in 5e the way that you could in third edition. So like they only ever go 5 levels, which I think is how they treated it when they tried to play test it anyway.
Yeah.
When Wizards
Well,
did it,
did they go
but
full
also
10 when in third? Was it they went 10 levels?
I think it depended on the prestige class, but I thought they went 10 levels.
Yeah, I think it depended too, and I think they maxed out at 10. Like there was some less. I
The
don't know.
one in
So,
the one in the SRDs, the ones in the SRD, I believe, go to 10.
okay, yeah, yeah. And then I think they did some other ones that were like different and then had less.
I mean,
But
also
again, also
you
it's
can
like
do
20
whatever you
years
want
ago.
with it. You know, it's
Yeah,
like these are guidelines. You know,
yeah.
like
But
don't use stuff in our books. Use stuff from this PDF, and you're fine.
I
Um,
was told in like 5e it didn't work just because the way the classes were so different, like the way they got their features for the different subclasses and stuff.
I mean,
So
I
in
think it depends
playtesting it didn't
on.
work.
I mean, they only play tested one, and
Yeah,
in my opinion, Rude Magic was a whole lot of nothing.
yeah,
You get a rock that sometimes
yeah,
casts almost a
yeah,
spell,
yeah.
so it's like a magic item, but it functions like a spell. But I still gotta like have it in my. Okay, but this sounds bad and it doesn't really go with anything. Okay, cool. So you don't want it. It's a bad idea. Well, slow down. It's not a bad idea. It just doesn't work with like
Yeah.
this is the one you play tested. Um, like not like I felt like Sword Singer, the one that's what is that in? Sword Coast Adventures. Is that what it's in?
Oh, the Blade
Blade
Singer,
Singer, Blade Dancer. What was it
yeah,
called?
the Blade Singer
Blade
subclass.
Singer. Yeah, like I feel like that could have been a prestige class. Like
Yeah, they redid that one in Tasha's and made it. They made like a small tweak to it. I don't know. People really love that, and I'm like, yeah. Always with the gishes, right? Like I'm like they're cool
yeah,
and fun, but they're not as good as you think they are.
but
Like
people love them.
they do love them. I'm just like, no, dude.
I want magic and a sword. Damn it.
Yeah, and it's cool, right? And it's thematic and it's fun. But I'm like, dude, if if you can cast spells or you can whack it with a stick, generally there's a better spell than your stick. So
There's like 3 different spells that just are a sword.
yeah,
You could
true.
just do that. You could go full sorcerer and solve this problem outright.
They're always like,
Just
but if I
have
do
a
this, this, and this, like, yeah, or you could just wear heavy armor.
and
So,
I don't want to make game content that's that min maxed, to be perfectly honest. Like some of our
yeah,
stuff is a little broken in one direction or the other, and we know that. And the explanation I've always given to people is then don't use it. Because like at the end of the day, I want to play the character I want to play. I want to have fun at my game table. And if
yeah,
I'm that worried about, oh, but it doesn't scale appropriately with other barbarians of this level, Jesus Christ. Like, okay, if that's how
yeah,
you want to play the game, more power to you. Absolutely, go do it. But for me personally, like I just want to have fun. And sometimes playing something different can be fun. Like I've played characters that are weaker and not optimized and had a lot of fun with it. And I'm not super worried about developing something that's like, oh, but it's not. Look at how it scales and look at where it lands compared to. It's like, yeah, but look at Rangers in the book, like just regular Rangers. They're a mess. Like
yeah.
so come on. It's fine.
If you want spreadsheets, go over and watch Trent Monk, and he like
I don't.
totally like does all the spreadsheets and everything. He's great if you're into that specific thing. And there are people that are. There's definitely like they're all about the optimization, and it's funny because like me and Ted will talk about optimizing and mechanics a lot, but we don't really play our games that way. We just like to we like the theory craft and debate and talk about that stuff. But then like my first 5e character was a wizard fighter, and I started as a wizard because I wanted to be a wizard that had armor and hit things at first level by being a mountain dwarf.
Who's
And
talking
then
about Gishus? What was that?
so 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 my first character for 5e, mountain dwarf wizard. And I was like, cool, I can wear armor and hit stuff with an axe. And then, oh yeah, about games. Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
like we say
exactly.
that stuff all the time, but yo, but that's not how we play. We play for fun. We don't play for like the most optimal thing, right?
Right.
And then I started taking levels in fighter, right? And then I had to go and take the feat to give me a heavy armor because I still wanted to wear plate mail, of course. And like had I built it right, quote unquote right, you know, you would have just started with first level and been a, took fighter and get everything for free. But I wanted to be a wizard that fought. I didn't want to be a fighter that wizard. So it's like we just do what's fun, and it doesn't always mechanically make sense. I guess it was a really long way of saying that. So
I agree. Also, like I don't know anyone that plays that way. Like I know a lot of people that talk about the game that way. I know that a
yeah,
lot of people that like post on forums like I've built out this like statistically perfect cool, but like your DM lets you get away with that? Like no, yeah, sure they let you take the class. It's all cool with the rules. It's player's handbook +1. Dig it. And they don't throw curveballs at you at all. They don't throw anything homebrew. They don't throw unexpected creatures. They don't swap out all the spells on mage so that they just know a series of counter spells and dispel magic.
yeah,
like nothing. They just
yeah.
let that happen. I find that difficult to believe.
It's
So
weird. People get really weird about their games sometimes. Like Eric Croker is another big triggering thing in the game. It's like they can
I don't
fly at first level. I'm like, they suck. They don't have any other abilities. That's it. That's all they got for the rest of the game. And also sleep.
but they've got claws. They have claws.
Yes. Yeah.
They have a melee attack that probably isn't that helpful to them if they get close range and it's functionally a dagger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you could take a dagger or that. It's
And like
fine.
for for the first 5 levels of the games, you have to fear getting dropped every time because once you hit the ground, you've already got a death save. So yeah, like I don't know. We play for
The
fun. We don't worry about
Earthbind
their stuff.
is a spell
Yeah,
that
it is.
like it's not that high level.
But personally, I prefer using things like sleep to make them fall.
It's we were playing a campaign a few years ago and they had we I wasn't part of the original campaign they did, but they had just gotten off this epic level 3.5 campaign and they jumped into 5e. I was like, all right, we're ready to do this. It's going to be great. Two different characters jumped off a set of stairs and died.
Yeah.
First day out, just jumped off stairs and died. And they're like, what's happening? And it's like, you're first level in 5e. You're not epic level thieves. You're first level wizards. What are you doing? But they're like hopping down 6 stairs and they're all right, well, you take 1d6 falling damage. You're dead. Or you're dying, but and it's like, oh my god, how did this happen?
In one of our games, we had the wizard ran out of spells
Mhm.
and forgot that you could just cast cantrips. So he like
It's like your bread and butter.
yeah. So like he ends up disarming one of the thugs that he's fighting and then stabbing him with his own knife and critting. It's just like a lucky series of rolls and bad rolls for the GM. But like that mistake led to such a funny situation in the game.
See, I play sorcerer now, and I've had situations like that.
Yeah.
But we're constantly fighting demons, and my only damage cantrip is
Firebolt.
firebolt,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, I can't do anything. I jump at him. I'm gonna grab him. You're gonna what? I'm gonna grab him. I'm gonna use my one free Misty Step a day to wrap him up. Do you have any strength at all? None.
No.
Gonna be great. Taking like a -3 to this.
Got a lot of heart.
What's your roll? Don't worry about it. Tell me what happens. Dead. Yeah, all right. That's fair.
That same wizard decided to go into melee with like a beholder and was like riding the beholder and like taking all kinds of crazy damage. But the cleric had cast warding bond on the wizard and was like just getting wrecked from the warding bond effect and not so much the anything else that was going on in combat. And they got to the point where they needed to stop concentrating on the warding bond or end the warding bond spell, but they didn't have an action to do it. So they ended up getting dropped. If you're a cleric in your game, never warden bond the psychotic player at the table. It's just going to go badly for you.
It's fine.
But that's the annex that happened at the table. And I don't think that can happen with spreadsheets.
No.
So, but I feel like too, like those players that are like that too tend to play Pathfinder more. Anyway,
That's true.
first edition, like they're the ones that are definitely going to try 5e and be like, I don't like this.
And I mean, well, who knows? Maybe they'll buy our stuff and go, this is a little more my speed. Well, maybe. Well, it could go either way, really, because we're being silly about it.
Somewhere's in
But
between, yeah.
not that
Uh,
we're trying to be like full blown spreadsheets or anything. But
so what is
like I
your
said, we're
favorite thing from the new book?
in our new book.
Hmm?
Hmm. Weapons of Annihilation.
Weapons of Annihilation. Is that
Weapons of
anything like a
Annihilation.
sphere of annihilation?
It's like a stone that has the inherent properties of a sphere of annihilation, or it's some of the properties of sphere of annihilation, and that you could make weapons and armor out of it, much to the potential detriment of yourself and everyone around you. And similar to some of the epic level spells we put in the grimoire,
Yeah.
there's a nice big like block next to that and some of the other materials that's like, hey DMs, I know you're not going to give this to your players. You should give this to the big bad evil guy though,
Yeah.
because that's like half of the reason it's here. Is not because if this exists for your players, it exists for everyone else, and that's an important thing to remember. And the people that are like too rich for my blood, I know they're not going to put Weapons of Annihilation in their game. But the people that hear that and go, see, those are the people that they're gonna scoop the book right up the moment they hear that. So it's weapons. It's a weapon that has some of the properties of a weapon of a sphere of annihilation. Also, some armor that does the same, presuming it's made out of annihilation stone. But also, there's a material called warpwood, and warpwood has some of the properties of teleporting and uh, like a bag of holding.
Hmm.
So the problem is that what happens when you bring them together, and there's a nice little block about what happens when you bring one in contact with the other. And I'm excited to hear about that because we get great stories about some of the stuff that we sell. So like there's a card in the Deck of Wonder that's everyone everywhere falls prone. And I have heard two different stories about how that's killed Tiamat. So I can't wait to hear about how Weapons of Annihilation and Warpwood have come together to cause some level of catastrophe. I'm very excited.
Well, I feel like isn't like a bag of holding and like the warpwood property or something like that. Isn't that how you get a sphere of annihilation essentially?
I think if you bring them together, they kind of cancel each other out. But if you put one bag of holding and another bag of holding, it's kind of like a sphere of annihilation, but it doesn't destroy everything. It
Yeah.
sends you to the astral plane. So
Causes a
I
rips.
spent too much time reading about this.
So Parks wants to know: is it similar to skill set to create an animation as, say, creating a face filter for video chats?
Is it what?
Is it a similar skill set to create animation as, say, creating face filters for video chats?
Face filters for video chat. Um, face filters, you mean like it's like a animated avatar that like talks when you talk and like
I
moves and
guess the face,
blinks.
like, I guess like the filters, like from the different apps, like Snapchat and stuff like that.
I guess it depends on what you mean. I've seen some that are like their avatars, like their stickers that just go in front of your face, but
Hmm.
talk when you talk and things like that. Um, I in school I've studied some of the coding and some of the like ways that you develop that. I wouldn't say that they're exactly the same skill set. There is some weird middle ground between them.
Hmm.
Certainly, like there's some artistic talent, but there are also people that do that they're not the artists; they're just taking the art in. Um, a lot of that stuff is kind of built out in After Effects, which is a program I use for my animation. Um, so it kind of depends. Also, it depends on how like my animation is very static, but like intentionally so. It's got that kind of flash animation style, and what I mean by intentionally so is, it would take more time for me to give a good squash and stretch and make it feel more alive and active than it does right now. And I don't have that kind of time. So it doesn't. So like different animators use different programs at different uh, my brain died. Different programs and different methods to kind of set up their animations and draw them out and plan them. Like a lot of that is actually they're more like puppets. Mine are more like puppets. They're individual drawings attached to rigs that you can't see because they're invisible in the exported animation. But there's like a little bar that I move around, like frame by frame as I go through the animation. And like so when it's like if you watch the Kickstarter video, when his hand kind of comes up and he's like kind of like frustrated kind of doing this, it's his arm up down over whoops
Yeah.
holding the book. All of those are just different arms that I've drawn on a slider, and all of his eyes are different eyes on a slider, and his mouth is all the different phonemes again on a slider. And in each point that I need it to be something else, I just move one of the sliders and then I make them all invisible. But there are some people that would do that and they frame by frame do a different face for each position for each expression.
But,
Excuse
and
me.
that's
So
probably like more traditional animation.
yeah, it's a lot more traditional. So it depends on how it's being done. There's also there's a puppet tool in After Effects where you can just take a static image and like pin certain points in it and like kind of warp it around. So like you have a picture of someone like this and then you can kind of warp their arm around. So even though it's not animated to do that, it is kind of like stretched around in a certain way to look like it's been animated to move. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. Some of the same skill sets kind of match up, but it depends on what the particular animator has studied and kind of worked with.
Sounds like sorcery to me.
It is absolutely sorcery.
Witchcraft. For sure. Get the fire started. Um, so what else do you guys have in the pipeline?
So now that we've done swords and sorcery, this is our swords book. Now that we've kind of done like just general rules, we're actually at the same time working on what will be a campaign setting. So we wrote a couple of adventures, and we actually have a bunch in the pipe that we haven't released because it seemed like a bad time the last couple of years to do that. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but it seems like there's something going on. But so we've kind of had like we're using these like locations and these characters as a framing narrative for a lot of the rules we're creating, and it seemed like a good idea and opportunity to start to develop a world. And step the next is like we're actually building out not quite our own system. It's more like a large expansion to the rule set, and it'll be compatible with fifth edition, and it'll kind of ship alongside a campaign setting that is the framing narrative for it. So the world of Arden is the worlds that we've been writing that we keep saying our stuff takes place in. And that's touched probably the most in the Grimoire and Kingdom of Owlbears are the two books that primarily have gone out, and a couple other small adventures. So step the next is after this book we've been working on, we're gonna put out that one, and that one's gonna be a lot more races, a lot less classes and things like that, but a lot more backgrounds and a new expansion of kind of like character creation, kind of like our version of a player's handbook, along with like this is the stuff in the world and these are the creatures in the world, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we got next. We have Patreon. We haven't really been doing much with it, and part of that is because we just couldn't keep up with it. There's only three of us,
Yeah, it's
but we've
hard.
got some new help who just came on board. One of our artists, Molly, is kind of jumped in and said, "I want to help you guys build this out." So we're going to be giving some new attention to the Patreon. So a monthly article, a monthly something, is going to be going up there. And like I said, we've got a bunch of these adventures that we haven't put out. We've kind of held back, and so probably next year we're going to start rolling them out as an adventure series, and hopefully have, if not one a month, maybe one a quarter, so that we can kind of start to get people comfortable with the idea that we don't produce goofy cards that make things go boom. We produce printed adventures that people want to maybe download or purchase or however, and just get people more comfortable with our written content as opposed to our fun and funny cards. So that is kind of where we are and where we see ourselves going, and then we have more plans for the future, but we want to focus on like what's right in front of us for right now, and Rolex followed by the World of Arden are kind of like what we're focused on primarily at the time. So
So, is this the world you guys run and play in, or is it the world that you've built your products up around, or both?
it's the world we've built our products up around, or we're starting to build our products up around. It's there's definitely some inspiration. Like it's not like we're trying to take the game we play in and plug it in. But there's certainly some cross inspiration happening because like we can't help it,
Yeah.
two of us play in that game every Monday night, and all of those guys have helped us out immensely. So like Rob, who's actually one of the main guys over at Wicked Good Games, Wicked Good Gaming, if you know their podcast, they cover video game stuff. But Dr. Bob, he's an actual doctor, amazingly, and does a gaming podcast. But it's his character. Rollock is his character, and they've helped us with a ton of stuff, and they've given us great ideas. And they've never wanted credit or money or anything. Not that I'm getting paid for any of this, but they've all helped us out, and they've been so great. And they've given us free plugs on their show and stuff. So like we've helped them, and they've helped us, and they've said, yeah, use the thing from the game, and they haven't, like it's never been a problem, and I don't ever see it becoming one. And we've in the grimoire we gave them credit, like we gave the whole group credit. Everyone that's played in the game got a byline for the Dudes, Guys, and Dragons, because they've also, whether they knew it or not, play tested some of the stuff that we've put out. And so like it's not one for one our world, but there's certainly some things, like there's a couple magic items that we put in that, like, because there's always like stuff that's a joke, and there's always stuff that's like meaty content, and then there's like this other, it's like, oh, there's a arbitrary magic item in here, and some of those are specific call outs to some of our players. And we like the grimoire has over 100 magic items in it, so no one noticed or cared when one of them was a call out to one of our players, but it meant the world to them. So none of this setting is really that setting. That setting's a very different setting. That setting is fantasy in and around Boston. And it is very much, unless you're from Boston, you do not understand half of what's going on in this world. There's a local attorney with bad cable channels, and he is like one of the big bad guys running around the world. Jim Sokolov. And unless you're from Boston or the Metro Boston area, you don't know who that is or what that is. So we wouldn't mean anything. So we would never kind of go, oh, then Dad, it belongs over here at Gemhammer. That doesn't belong there. So there's some inspiration from characters and things that we've referenced, but it'll never be that world, and they'll never be the same thing, because I don't think any of us want it to be. But also, like, inside jokes, people on the outside don't find funny, and so there's no sense in trying to make people think it's funny. Although there is one inside joke that I couldn't help myself. I had a weakness. So we played with a guy who is very insistent that Looper and Jumper are similar movies. I swear he hasn't seen either of them. And if you've ever seen the movies Looper or Jumper, you're like, other than them having vaguely similar names, they have nothing in common. But he was insistent. So we made.
So you used your ability to publish stuff as a way to make fun of them?
Yes. So Ring of the Jumper and Ring of the Looper have the exact same effect. And that was we were already at 100 items, or we were over 100 items, and I'm like, well, we're supposed to put 100 items in here. No one will notice if I throw in 2 more. If I take this piece of art out and plug in this paragraph of these 2 silly magic rings, and we've gotten no questions about it, so I felt pretty good about it. It was fun for me.
That is funny. We've got this like shared nerdarchy universe as a amalgamation of the content we've created online and the games that we play. And like our content director is always like trying to thread them together, and we've like never really been that conscious about it. So what happens is, like, because we've done so many videos talking about things and creating things that we would want to use in our games but never have, because we've created them with people that are playing in those games. So you're like, oh well, there's no point. I just might as well make something new. Ted's already seen that, or Ryan or Nate at the time, they've already seen that. So many more people
just call it an unreliable narrator and put something new in there. Problem solved.
Problem solved.
But everyone else does.
Do you prefer playing martial characters or casters?
I almost always end up as a caster. I like spells. See, I like to try and think of kind of outside the box solutions to problems, and I like that magic lets me do a lot more of that. Although, in spite of that, my favorite character recently. Well, I'm playing a wild magic sorcerer right now that I'm absolutely in love with. He's basically a combination of oh geez, the wizard from The Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett and the one from The Last Unicorn, whose names I'm ADD. My
The kid, the young guy,
yeah,
the wizard that's not very good at wizarding.
Schmendrick
Yeah,
Schmendrick from The Last Unicorn,
yeah,
and oh my god, I can't remember his name. The Discworld wizard,
yeah.
the one that can't cast any spells.
I've actually, oh, I feel
Oh
like I
my
should
god, I
know that
can't.
name.
I should
I've
know his
never
name.
actually
Like,
read any Terry Pratchett, but I also feel like I should still know that
I'm
name.
sitting here remembering Two Flower. That's not helping me. Like, what's the wizard's name? Oh my god.
And
Anyway,
someone in the chat's probably going to say it. Is it like Ringwald or something?
what is it?
Ringwald.
Something like that. Shit. Anyway, so I'm absolutely in love with him. But my favorite character recently has been this big dopey Azamar, who's a barbarian,
Uh huh.
but thinks he's a paladin, and is on an epic journey for a mystical, magical, epic journey of destiny, where him and his super best friends are going to become epic, magical destiny people that are going to go on an adventure, and it's going to be super great, and we're going to win, and we're all going to be super best friends for life, and we'll be heroes. And like every opportunity I had to go on it some ridiculous rant
Rincewind.
using Rincewind.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, chat.
Google.
Oh,
Google.
Google. Thank you,
Chat
Google.
probably have said it by the time I get back to it. They did. Yeah.
But so my barbarian that thinks he's a paladin, who just rant on about his super awesome magical destiny with his super best friends, was absolutely my favorite character of late. Which everyone else, I think, wanted to murder me towards the end of that campaign, because like no matter what we were doing, because we're all best friends and we're all gonna have an epic magical destiny. Shut up.
There's nothing magical. We're not friends.
Not friends. This isn't destiny that's happening.
Yeah.
Then we walk by a big painting and there's carvings of us on the wall. Look. Why are you giving him this?
Nice. Stop encouraging him, DM. Doesn't matter as long as you're having fun and annoying your friends.
I was having a great time.
Yeah.
Actually, I think the DM hated it most of all.
Are you usually a player?
Usually, I DM'd for a while. Man, I DM'd our group for almost a year, probably a little longer than that, actually. And then I did another. I did like a cowboy campaign for a little while, and then I made them go to space because we were wrapping up that campaign anyway, and I didn't know how to end it, so I just sent them to space. And you're all out of here. I don't need to worry about how you fit in the canon at all. Goodbye. Why did you do that? Because I wanted to. Peace. And then I DM'd.
Silence spell is a party's friend.
I never use it.
So
I'm always twinning my spells. Sorry, go ahead.
Did you do the Wild Wild West game and the space game? Did you do those with D&D or did you play something else?
No, we do D&D, but we also play a lot of the Star Wars role-playing game. Also, the Green Ronin Song of Ice and Fire game. We played that a lot too. I think that's a great role-playing game. Combat's a little weird, and magic is practically non-existent unless you get like their supplement about it. But
yeah.
I don't know, that game would, like, unless you're playing like a guy with a sword, you're kind of out of luck in most scenarios. So it's tough. But I really love the Star Wars role-playing game. We've done 3 different campaigns of that. That's a great system. We've done all 3. And we've kind of mixed and matched whenever. Oh, sorry, the Fantasy Flight version.
Yeah, that works.
See, No, yeah, you're an older guy, so that makes sense that you would say. I really want to play the D20 version.
D20, D6. There's a
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
been a few. I actually
I
haven't
really
played
want to
the
do the
earlier
D20
ones.
version because like my first experience, like I grew up with my dad, like reading a ton of uh, Dragonlance books and like
Mhm.
those being around the house, and I never knew those were D&D until I was a little older and I kind of understood. So my first experience with the D20 system was Knights of the Old Republic. So when I started really getting into this and playing with these guys all the time, and I'm like getting really into D&D, like I've always like, hey guys, we should go back to 3.5. Oh yeah, we totally should go play Pathfinder. What about Knights of the Old Republic? No, we're not doing that. But what about this book that I bought that's Knights of the Old? No, 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 we're not doing that. So we have this new one from Fantasy Flight that they've now discontinued. So we're gonna do that one.
Is it now officially discontinued?
I don't know, but they like haven't made anything for it in a long time. So
But they were shotgunning a lot of books really fast for a while. Maybe
and
it's
I
because
loved it. I mean,
maybe
I
the
loved it. I
licensing was
bought them
running
all.
out. So
Oh,
they're
maybe.
like, we got to get it all out the door now. Go, go, go. Because there's a there. I mean, even if they've discontinued, there is a lot of it.
I mean, there's a lot in Star Wars, and there's a market there.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't played the earlier ones. We did. I've played a few games of the Fantasy Flight. I guess you know what the problem for me is I don't actually like Jedi. I like everything else about the Star Wars universe. And when we play, I'm like, I hate Jedi.
That's fair. My last character was a stormtrooper sniper who was latently force sensitive and was like desperately trying to keep it from everyone so that he
Yeah.
didn't get found out and dragged off somewhere. And that was a lot of fun because I also killed a bunch of Jedi, so it's fine.
Yeah. I
Everything's fun.
think it was fun. My son just wanted to play an Ewok that was a Jedi, and the GM
An
wouldn't let him.
Ewok Jedi.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. At some point, I think we tried getting Ewoks cloned, uh,
Hmm.
and we were trying to get them so they could be force sensitive. I don't know. We did some weird things in that game.
I think everyone does weird things in every game. I
Yeah.
try not to think
Well,
about it
that's true. If
or
you're
judge.
having fun, you're probably doing weird things.
It's true.
And real life is serious enough. I don't need that to infiltrate my game world. Yeah.
I'm gonna play a
So
super serious game. No, thank you.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. So how often are you gaming? Just the once a week?
For now, just the once a week. Since COVID, my other group that I was DMing, we haven't really got together too much. A lot. I don't really know why. Like we could have moved out to online, and it just never happened. I don't remember why. But primarily, just the once a week is what we've been doing right now. I've been so busy. I probably couldn't have taken on another game anyways.
Yeah, it
Although
does.
that doesn't mean
It's
I don't
hard.
want to. It's just like I'm pretty sure if I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do Saturday nights, my wife would be like, no, you're not. Fair. Yes, ma'am. Shutting up.
How do you feel about being single again?
Not great.
Yeah, yeah,
Canceling my plans? You got it.
yeah. It's hard, man. This hobby just takes up so much time, and then when you're doing it for a living as well. Yeah, so I end up playing. So we play Tuesday nights. I got a game Saturday mornings. Usually play Saturday nights, and I think I'm about to start a Vast Grim game that's going to be every other Wednesday.
Jeez.
That's streamed, and then the Tuesday night game is streamed as well. So they're like shorter games,
Hmm.
but so it's like when a game gets canceled, I'm like, whatever, like because it
Because
means I'm
another one
only
won't come up. It'll be fine.
yeah because it means I'm probably still gonna game like twice that week anyway. Um, but like I don't know, like sometimes I think I don't like the hobby as much as other people because you look at streamers and they're playing like multiple games a day, 7 days a week. I'm like, I don't think I like anything that much.
I don't know how they do it. Like, I
Yeah,
love this. I want this to be my full time job forever.
yeah,
And a couple of times we've dipped. I was saying to you earlier before we got on stream, like a couple of times we've dipped our toes into like online games, and I'd get done with one, and I'd be like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a streamer. I don't
yeah.
want to do this. This is awful. Imagine doing this for 8 hours a day and then having to recut the videos. And I don't know how you do it, but definitely like streaming an online game like that. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. That's not me.
So what I think one of the key things is like, duration, right? Like I think like 2 hours for a stream game is like the perfect amount of time. Any longer than that, it's a bit much. And also like just to be like sitting in, at a desk with a computer in front of you, just like zoomed in, it can become a bit exhausting. And also when you got an audience watching, you're always thinking about that. Like I have to be entertaining and be on, and you don't want to be like spend time flipping through books, looking stuff up, or arguing about rules. So it's definitely not the same as just gaming.
No. And I think it takes a special kind of person to be the DM for that kind of thing. Because I think I'm a pretty charismatic guy. I don't think I'm a very charismatic guy when I'm behind the screen and on camera and interacting with chat. I think my attention is divided too many ways. And I'm like, hey, everybody, welcome to stream. But hold on. Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you rolled a what? Hold on. Someone's typing something in the chat. And I've lost everything. I don't know where am I? What page are we at? What are we doing? Who are you?
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Top of the round.
Some of those folks that do
initiative.
it are so impressive. Like they're in the chat, they're in the game, and it's like I remember having
I mean, good for them, but that's I couldn't do it.
We had Will Jones on, and he was like, we're just talking like this, and he's like having a separate conversation with people in the chat while talking to me. I'm like, how? Like my brain doesn't
Pressing
work
the
that
button
way.
to launch this
Yeah.
was way too much. I'm like sitting there like stalling out like yeah. What?
Yeah.
Sorry. Like there's no way I could sit here.
Maybe if I was typing what I was saying, but there's no way I could be like two different.
I'm not even
streams of
looking at the
consciousness.
chat because I'm like, if I look at this, I'm gonna have no idea what he's saying at all. Even if it's not directed at me, it's like scrolling by and I'm like, what's going on? What are they saying? What are they doing?
Fair enough. I've definitely gotten lost in the chat in times, and like I'm talking to someone else, and I'm like, oh, I totally missed what you're saying because I was reading. So we are just past the hour mark. Final thoughts before we head on out?
I got nothing. Thanks for having me on. This has been great.
Well, thanks for coming on, Connor. As always, folks, links are in the description. Go check out the Kickstarter and follow Gemhammer Gaming and Sons around the interwebs. And until next time, stay nerdy.